Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate having us back here again. For anybody just at the top of this class, if you do have any questions or there's anything that needs to be addressed, please feel free to use the chat so that we can get those questions answered. Now, I do know that there's going to be some friends helping me out in the chat today from Siser, so there will be some Siser representatives hanging out in the class too, so that we can get all of your questions answered. But thank you so much for the introduction, and I love doing these, and I also, it drives me crazy because every time we do the introduction, I find like 4 or 5 classes that I want to sign up for. So you could probably catch me attending one of those classes or coming back to you and teaching you another thing. But hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Ali. I am the lead educator here and video production manager at Siser North America. I am a part of the Siser Global team. We're a company that's based out of Vicenza, Italy, and we have a North America location about 15 to 20 minutes north of Detroit, Michigan, in a town called Sterling Heights. That is actually where I work from. That is where my studio space is from. And where a lot of our content and things that come out from Siser North America actually come from this building right that I'm standing in right now. So very excited to come back to teach another class. The last class that we taught was on DTV, or direct to vinyl, which is a product that is a full color printable vinyl that you only need a desktop printer for. So for a lot of us at home, we're buying these big pieces of equipment. We've minimized the need for massive pieces of equipment to be able to do these multi-color jobs. Or maybe you're doing a project and, you know, a $30,000 piece of equipment isn't something that's for you. Make sure to go on to Michael's YouTube and listen to the playback of that DTV class as well, because we taught a lot of really great things. But I'm very excited to teach this one, talking about heat transfer vinyl and how to elevate your projects. But more importantly for us, understanding what these heat transfer vinyls were even meant for in the first place. I think a lot of times people will find an EasyWeed, which is a thinner material, or a Brick 600, which is a thicker material, and we'll mix them into projects that we do every day, which, although look incredible, may not be what the end result that we're looking for. So my goal in this class is not only to teach you a thing or two about some of the products that you can find at Michael's, what type of garments that they actually apply to, so that you can go into your next project confident and happy and comfortable with what you're learning here today. But most importantly, how to just make all of our stuff look really, really cool. So I'm going to show you some quick tips and tricks along the way on how to utilize multiple products just to make, you know, elevate your projects that much better, or that much easier. Now, I want to just make sure that at the top of this class, really quickly, I am using the white 9x11 heat press. This is available at Michael's. As well as for this project, I am going to be using Siser's Juliet high definition cutter. This is actually our cutting machine that just made its 1-year birthday earlier in September. So I'm going to be utilizing this. I'm going to be using Leonardo Design Studio, but for all my Cricut, all my brother Scan and Cut, all my Silhouette friends in the group or that's watching right now, I'm going to also try to make sure that I'm explaining those processes as well, because I think a lot of times when we talk about a new item, we don't realize that sometimes just the terminology may be different and we're already used to using it. So as we get started in here, if there's any pertinent comments, questions, concerns, anything like that in the chat, it'll be brought up to me here. I got one monitor running so that we can get into it. So let's talk about heat transfer vinyl. Now, heat transfer vinyl is simply a piece of material that has an adhesive backing on it, which is also then married to a carrier sheet that will actually hold that product. So for a lot of us out there that are sticker makers or utilize PSV or sticker material or adhesive material, what you're used to doing is you're used to cutting your design the way that you read it, right, normal, and not inverted or not mirrored, and then going ahead and weeding out that material, masking it with a masking tape or a transfer tape, and then going ahead and transferring that onto an object. Heat transfer vinyl is the same concept. We've just taken some of the process and simplified it by adding a carrier to the material itself. You'll actually cut it in reverse, which is something that I'm going to show you here shortly on the Juliet. You'll cut it in a mirrored ratio. So you cut it so that it's the opposite of how you see it. And the reason being is that once you weed all of that material away and you go ahead and flip that design back over onto your garment, you can rest assured that everything's going to line up the way that it's supposed to and be readable, readable, I'll say, as you want it to be. Now, I'll also show you really quickly in Leonardo Design Studio how to create like a knockout method design like I have on my shirt that says Siser then North America underneath it. But let's get into the first type of vinyl that we're going to be talking about, which is our base vinyl. And our most basic version of vinyl that we carry in our standard line, which is called EasyWeed. And essentially what EasyWeed is it's a heat transfer vinyl that has a carrier sheet on top, just like we explained, in the adhesive on the back. It's about 90 microns thick. Now you're probably asking yourself, Patrick, I don't know what that means, which is understandable. It's about the thickness of a Post-it note, maybe 2 Post-it notes, if that's to put it into perspective. And that'll make more sense here towards the middle of the class when we get into another product called Brick 600 that happens to be a little bit thicker than what we're used to seeing with EasyWeed. Now, with EasyWeed, EasyWeed comes in a multitude of colors. There are a ton. I mean, there's over, as far as I know right now, there's over 50 colors that are available of EasyWeed. And it's a really simple product to use. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hop over to the overhead here, and I want to just kind of lay these two materials down on the table. Now, we have a royal blue, we have a fluorescent orange EasyWeed that we're going to be working with, and I'm going to show you a really quick, easy way to actually weed out your EasyWeed. Now, with most heat transfer vinyls out there, there are a couple of steps, and again, we're going to get into that here next. But these pieces have already been cut for us. So I just kind of want to explain the actual weeding process of the EasyWeed. Now, for anybody out there that is using an EasyWeed product, let me actually find another weeder here. Alrighty. When we're using an EasyWeed product, it's best to what I like to say, score the material or just barely make an impression in the material that's not touching your actual design. And what this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to get all of those little cavities that are out of your design so that we can move on to the next step and actually applying. Now, as you can see, although EasyWeed, as I go into this, I can really just, kind of manipulate it, and I don't really have to pay too much attention to the actual material itself because it's not a super fragile material. There's an easier method for this. So what I'm going to actually do for this process, I'm going to slide in my 9x11 or 9x11 heat press, and we're going to do what's called the easy tack method or the loosening method. So what we do, it's a little trick. We take our heat press, it's set at 305 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds, and we're simply just going to lower down the heating portion of our platen. So we're basically just connecting the heating element to our bottom platen and giving it a little bit of time to heat up this portion of our heat press. Now, the reason why I tell you to do that, and as you can see with the overhead, there is still, even though EasyWeed is super simple, there's still some resistance to the material, right? So what we're going to go ahead and do is that once I take this material carrier side down, so that means that little plastic carrier sheet that's on the back side, make sure that that's facing down. I'm going to just lay this design down onto the bottom platen of the heat press that, again, we just applied a little bit of heat to. And what this is actually doing in real time is it's heating up all of the adhesive in between the EasyWeed layer and the carrier layer. So now, once we go back to the overhead and I show you, it's now pulling without any resistance. So it really, really does weed beautifully with or without the heating element. But let me go ahead and just take out these couple of cavities here. So we have the first part of our design, which I'm just going to lay down right there. And then I'm going to take my next design, and now I've already showed you the heat press trick. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to heat up the bottom platen of my heat press. I'm going to apply a little bit of heat to the material, and a really good rule of thumb, okay, with any of these. When you have a material like an EasyWeed, the way that an EasyWeed is manufactured or put together is that the plastic carrier itself and the actual material are actually, they're laminated together. So they run on a big machine and they laminate those two pieces together. Well, sometimes what that does is that gives us a little bit of a bowing when we first cut our material. And everybody's used to it. If you've ever cut material off of a core, whether it's paper, whether it's vinyl, or it's EasyPSV or sticker adhesive, you know that sometimes it can take the shape of that core a little bit. So one of the other benefits of this method of using a little bit of heat is it actually loosens up the adhesive and it'll flatten out your EasyWeed material or your material on the carrier. So that's a good indicator that, hey, we've got enough heat that's touching the material now, or we've had enough heat that's allowed that adhesive to loosen up. So now I can take my weeder on or off the press, and I'm just going to simply take one little piece off, and this will probably be a really easy one to see. And just like that, I can peel really, really, really clean. Now, there's a couple of cavities in here, so I'm going to have to go back and make those adjustments, or just pick out all the additional cavities. But what this allows us to do now is we can move over onto our actual garment that we're going to apply. And what I actually was able to do upstairs is I stole some of ours, just for this class, just for you guys. I stole some of our trade show mini tees, because I think these things are super cute, and I love using these to actually show examples of our material. But what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to grab a white shirt, because I think this will be a lot easier to see. So what we're trying to achieve by this design itself, or by this method, let me turn it so you guys can see it pretty clean, is I have two layers. And I have two layers that say the exact same thing. So you're asking yourself, what could these be for? Well, this is a basic contour offset, okay, is essentially what this is. And what this allows you to do is this allows me to have a two-dimensional design or multicolor design without having to do a lot of legwork. Basically what I've done, and I'll show it to you here in Leonardo in a moment, but basically what I've done is I've taken my base image, and then I've added a small offset to that image itself. So when all said and done, we'll lay down our orange layer first, and then we'll go ahead and lay down our top layer, which is our blue layer. And let me do this really quick and get you guys just a little bit closer to the action. Ooh, down there. And then just make a quick adjustment to that. There we go. All right, now we can see a little bit better, which I like. Okay, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is the first thing and the first step of the process whenever we're applying an EasyWeed to a material. Now, the material we're using is a cotton material. It's a traditional material for t-shirts. That's what most people are finding, whether it's more expensive cotton materials or it's a blend of cotton and a polyester, but we're just using a standard cotton material. I'm going to go ahead and put my t-shirt, okay, onto the heat press itself, and then I'm going to do what's called a pre-press. Now, a lot of people ask, what is the pre-press for, and what does that mean? A pre-press simply is when a shirt is made, a garment's made, you all know just as well as I do, that when we're making thread and stuff, it doesn't come pink, right? Or it doesn't come in black, and it doesn't come in blue and red and whatever other colors are out there. These are synthetically dyed a lot of times. So what happens is the thread is obviously dyed after the fact that it's manufactured, which holds a lot of that color, but most importantly holds a lot of moisture inside the garment itself. So by pre-pressing it, what we're doing is we're drawing out a lot of that moisture. And for anybody at home that is watching and following along, what I always recommend for most people, if you're buying a bunch of shirts or a bunch of garments to make some really cool stuff with, especially when we're using a heat transfer vinyl, or maybe we're using like a DTV or a direct to film type transfer or screen print type transfer, it's best to toss these in the wash. And what I always do is I take a batch of them, I toss them in a wash, cold, water only, no soap, no detergents, no fabric softeners, and then I toss them into the dryer right after, which will allow two things to happen. And it's common with everybody watching. You're saying, yeah, we know. But when you throw a pair of jeans in the wash, what does it do in the wash tub once it drains? You get all the blue color out. So we're trying to take out some of that moisture and also trying to allow the garment to naturally shrink back to its normal state when we pre-press or when we pre-wash, which is what you should be doing, but the pre-press works perfectly. So again, we did our pre-press there, and what I'm going to do for you here is I want to show it on the overhead, is I'm going to take my first layer, which is my fluorescent orange, and I'm lining it up on my garment wherever I see fit. Now, for EasyWeed, EasyWeed applies to cotton, polyester, and polycotton blends. So it's a really great versatile material for really anything. It also will apply to like a leatherette. It'll apply to leather materials. It'll apply to some more heat sensitive materials. And there's some tips and tricks that you have to do along the way to get there. But for the most part, EasyWeed is our most versatile material that's in the Siser North America lineup. Now, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and take this right over the press. Let me bring this in just a little bit, and I'm going to try to make sure you guys can see this. So the actual material is on the press right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a 1-second tack. Now, one of the cool advantages of EasyWeed in that line of material, and especially when we're talking about elevating your business or elevating your projects, a lot of us like to do multi-layered projects, right? We like to have, you know, every single color stacked up on top of each other. And now we found as crafters, we have all found our method in the easiest way to do what's called the fake knockout method, or the stamp or the punch out method, which is something I can show you briefly as well. But to actually accomplish this, utilizing that 1-second tack in between layers allows me to build my design larger and larger, and also adding more and more colors to it. So let's go back to the overhead here. I have my material on my press. I also have my t-shirt on my press, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and press this image down. Oops, let me make sure that my press is on the right pressure. I'm going to press this image down for a second or two. I'm going to go ahead and just peel that carrier right off. So within a second, I was able to loosen the adhesive as much as possible on this carrier, but also minimizing any potential shrinkage or anything that could potentially happen with this design on this garment. Because there's two pieces of that. Sometimes people think that the actual material itself is shrinking. What's happening is the garment behind your material is shrinking. And what that's causing it to do is all of that adhesive is still trying to hold on to whatever type of material it has. So a lot of times you'll notice buckling, or you'll notice a lot of like really thin striped lines in your material, your design after a wash. Well, a really easy way to combat that is, number one, applying your material appropriately, but also number two, making sure that that pre-wash or that pre-press is something that we make a priority for us. So with that, I now have my top layer. And like I told you, it's a slight offset. So what I expect to see is I expect to see a little bit of that orange kind of peeking through. And most of you guys will know this as like varsity style designs, right? A lot of varsity style designs have that little offset to them in the actual design itself. But the good news is, because this is an EasyWeed, I'm going to show you guys really quickly. I can go ahead and 1-second tack that top layer, tear off my carrier, and now I'm ready to seal in my design by doing a final press. Now, I did forget a cover sheet, so this, just so no one yells at me, what I'm going to go ahead and do is instead of pressing onto the material itself, I'm going to go ahead and actually flip this garment over and press down onto the lower platen. So anytime that you do have material that you are applying in the Siser lineup, they all do have designated time, temperature, and pressure settings, okay? For an EasyWeed material, your time and temperature is 305 to 310 degrees for about 10 to 15 seconds, okay? And what that basically means is that that actually has to apply to adhere properly and cure properly for about 10 to 15 seconds on the press, so that we can actually have a really, really cool design. Now you can see essentially what we just made. Whoops, let me make sure I'm in the camera for you. Is that we have a really cool, simple design that has 2 layers of EasyWeed, but instead of having one simple contour on the actual garment itself, or on the actual design, we've added an additional contour to elevate or make that look a little bit better. Let me make sure, let me just get this, there we go. That looks really good now. So now you can see that you have that really cool contour. Anybody have any questions just before we get too deep into the next one? Does anybody have any questions when it comes to EasyWeed itself? All right.
It doesn't seem like any questions on EasyWeed, but we did get, hold on one second. Can we get more details on pressure settings?
Yes, actually, I'm going to show you guys. Let's revert a little bit in this class, because I know it's about elevating your business, but I believe that elevating your business isn't just educating on materials. I think educating on how to properly use equipment is a big one. So for most people, they have a press that is like this one here, right? Where it's, now I don't want to say most people, because we do have a lot of folks that use easy presses, or simply a home iron, which is exactly how this material came about, is using a home iron. And that was the bread and butter for heating elements very, very early on in the process for Siser. So we've been a company since 1970, and so we've gone through a lot of processes. So the cool part is, now that we have clamshell heat presses, or heat presses that actually have an adjustable dial on it, I'm going to show you a really cool fast trick on how to get not only low pressure, medium pressure, high pressure. Okay, and we can get extra firm pressure for all my sublimation people in there that don't like shifting and sliding and ghosting. So I got you. So what we do is we basically turn the dial all the way up so that our press is literally in a hover state. So you can see my weeder can fit in the press itself, okay? So the first step is how do we get standard pressure, or how do we get adequate soft to standard pressure? Well, the easiest way to do that is hover your press, turn the dial until the dial completely stops, okay? Until it makes contact with the lower platen, which looks like right about now, and your hand tight, okay? This right here is low pressure. As long as you're hand tight on the press, and I always say look out, because every press has kind of a primary activation and a secondary activation that actually hits the timer. If you lower your platen down and then you still have to give it a little to lock into place, you're at firm pressure. Or I'm sorry, you're at your basic, like your low pressure, light pressure. To turn it to a standard pressure, just give that dial 1 to 2 turns around, and then now we're at a standard pressure, okay? And then to give it a firm pressure, just give it another turn around, and now we're at a firm pressure. So ways that you guys can, just as a quick cheat sheet, is find wherever that stopping point is for your heat press. Give it 1 or 2 turns, that's gonna be your standard pressure, and then give it another turn or so, that's gonna be your firm pressure. And if you want extra firm, you can really turn it all the way if you want, or just throw a 50-pound plate on there or something, a weight or something on there. But that gives you kind of the standard of regular pressure, standard pressure, and then firm pressure, okay? Hopefully that answered your question. Alrighty, so let's move the press out of the way, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to the next material. Now, what I'm really excited about the next material is this is actually a material that's really versatile, because not only can you use heat transfer vinyls for it, but we also have the ability to get a crafter's foil, or some type of foiling that is heat applicable, okay? That's something that's in the craft space, but crafter's foil to actually go along with this product. And what this product is, and it's gonna be very hard to see in advance. Let me just make sure that we really zoom into this one and we frame that out properly for you so you can see. This material is called EasyWeed Adhesive. Now, for most of you, you're saying, okay, Patrick, you just showed us EasyWeed. Yes, and I'm showing you another EasyWeed product. However, this EasyWeed product, and what I love about it, is this is just the glue or adhesive that goes on all of our standard material. So as you can see right now, it's very much like a frosty kind of material. And once I set that down on the black garment, you can really see that obviously that material, but this is just the adhesive that goes on the back of all of our standard EasyWeed, which is hence why it's called EasyWeed Adhesive line of material. So again, like the EasyWeed, this product is really, really cool because I can bring my heat press back in. I can go ahead and put my garment on the press. And I know what everybody was trying to say right there. Hey, Pat, you weren't gonna pre-press. I promise you, I'm gonna pre-press. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-press my garment. Looks like I have to make an adjustment to it, just like we showed you. And there we go. And there's our standard. So I'm just pre-pressing my garment. And the reason why I'm pre-pressing it again is just to get that moisture out. I will tell you, any colors that are darker colors, so like your whites and your grays and your heathers, typically don't hold as much moisture. However, your colors like black, red, royal blue, pinks, those hold a lot of dye and a lot of pigment. So it's best to make sure that not only do you pre-wash if you can, but at the very least, just to get some of the moisture out from some of that pigment, is to make sure that we're pre-pressing. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and take my design and I'm gonna put it onto my heat press. And like I showed you before, you guys have seen this process, so I won't go overhead on this. I'm gonna simply put my press down for 1 to 2 seconds, and then I'm going to peel the carrier off, and then I go to overhead so that we can kind of try to see. So as the adhesive hits the light, you get a really, really cool, and this is why I called it versatile, you get a really cool tone-on-tone kind of effect with it, which I love. It's just subtle enough in gloss that it's going to show on the garment itself However, over time, this can fade and this can go away. So to seal it, and a really cool trick is if you have any type of craft foil laying around, and I'm going to actually show two sides of this. You can take that craft foil and you can go ahead and actually just apply it and set it down on your EasyWeed adhesive. Now, what I'm going to do for you is I want to show you two ways to actually use this foil. Number one, we can use this foil as a solid, but let's say that we're really into the athletic look, or we're really into like the older school varsity look, right? Well, we can take our foil and we can just crumple it up like you would with any other foil, give it a little bit of a turn and spin, and basically try to make a snowball in your hand is what I always say. Pull it to the side, and then now what you're gonna get is your solid, and then this one is your end result from you crumpling it up. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because once I go ahead and put these on my press, and then I'm gonna go and grab a quick cover sheet, because this one does need a cover sheet here. You know what, we'll do this. We'll use one of these guys. I'm just gonna use another shirt for it. So I'm gonna throw another shirt on top of this for the cover sheet. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. Now, what the most important part to remember about EasyWeed adhesive, and especially when we're using foil, two things. EasyWeed adhesive off of the carrier is what's considered a hot peel. Same with the EasyWeed, you can do that 1 second tack and peel it off. However, with the EasyWeed adhesive and craft foil, what we need to do is we need to allow for that foil to cool as well as the adhesive to cool so that we can get a good adhesion to the shirt. So one thing you can do is you can obviously take it, put it in your hand, wave it around, wave off your garment itself, rub it on a table, a cold surface. Just make sure that obviously your table's not dirty, because whatever's on your table will then transfer to your garment itself. But once we're done, we can go ahead and go back to the overhead view here, and we're gonna go and peel that solid color. So you can see right here a really beautiful peel from the craft foil. Let's try to get that athletic look, which I think we were able to achieve pretty easily. Now, you're not done necessarily once you actually do your foil, as if you can kind of see in the light. Maybe I can go around. There are some little flakes that are around my design, and also my design in certain spots like the foil doesn't peel as well all the time. So what we do is we take just basically that carrier sheet or that adhesive sheet that was on our foil, lay it down on the design now that everything's cool, and then we just basically rip it off. For all my folks out there that do eyebrow waxing and stuff, you guys know exactly this process. You just putting it down and getting all of the additional like foily stuff off, and now once all said and done, we have a really, really cool design. Now in the rainbow foil, the actual athletic look didn't show up super well, but you can see on there that you get a really, really beautiful finished garment or finished design on your shirt itself. Now, the cool part about it, the foil and adhesive method, is that there's hundreds of millions of different styles of adhesive and, different styles of foils. So for you at home, you really have the spectrum, whatever spectrum of colors, designs, shapes, patterns that you want when you're using an EasyWeed adhesive in that case. So any questions on EasyWeed adhesive or the foil process itself?
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
It was... Why does the foil need a cover sheet?
So the only reason that I say that a foil needs a cover sheet, or the reason we recommend that foil needs a cover sheet, is that when you, especially when you roll up the foil, you get a lot of little tiny bits of like actual foil pieces that have tendency to shed off. Now, with that said, I want to make it very clear that all materials that you're heat applying onto a garment realistically should have a cover sheet of Teflon, parchment paper, or a standard cover sheet that you can find, whether it's in the retail store or wherever you may find your cover sheets. But there are these little tiny bits, and really the big opportunity or the big reason to use a cover sheet is not so much the materials or protecting the garments. It's really about protecting your actual heat press itself. Now, there's a lot of really cool ideas and concepts that people have done where they just take a cover sheet, wrap it on their actual heat press, throw some magnets, which you can get at Michael's, throw some magnets on there, and it will hold that cover sheet in place so you don't have to worry about it. However, it is something that you should be doing, or it's something that is highly recommended to be using a cover sheet, especially when we run into things like a foil or we get into sublimation. So anybody that's in the group that knows sublimation, you guys know that it can get messy and it can ruin heat presses. So it's really about more so about protecting your actual press itself than it is about the materials, because with a material like our next material that we're going to go over, and I'll go to an overhead really quick, all materials, you know, the design is cut, weeded, and then the material basically already has a cover sheet in the carrier itself. But in the event that I want to press multiple layers of this, in the event of like the EasyWeed colors that we did here in the 2-layer, I want to make sure that once I press both layers down, when I go for that final press, I want to have something to protect not only the material, but also, again, most importantly, is my heat press. So the longer we can keep our heat presses in good condition, the longer we can keep our materials, our garments, and our process in good condition. So any other questions on that topic?
The other question was, what is the name of the rainbow foil that you were using?
Ooh, that one right there, I'm not 100% sure on the name, so I do apologize. However, if you look up craft foil, I do know that Michaels has a line of it as well. So maybe we can drop a link into the actual chat itself if there is one. But with that said, I don't know off the top of my head, I don't know the exact name, so I do apologize about that. But craft foils are typically what's used out there, for sure. Alrighty. So now that we've talked about EasyWeed, now that we've talked about EasyWeed adhesive, let's start going into trying to think of what I want to give you guys next, because I got a lot of really cool stuff. Let's talk about special effects with EasyWeed. Okay, so we'll stay in the EasyWeed line, and I promise we're going to get out of it here in a minute. But with that, there's a lot of special effect opportunities or things you can do when you create. Now, one of the designs that I actually want to make towards the end of this, as we get into Leonardo next, is I want to make a rhinestone, a faux rhinestone, using our holographic. So if you are a holographic heat transfer vinyl user, you can actually cut rhinestone templates. And I think what a lot of people assume is that a rhinestone template is very specific to a project and or a cutting machine and or a process. However, most people tear off their rhinestone when they make rhinestone flocking first. So any of my rhinestone folks in here, you can help me out by the explanation. But when you actually create a rhinestone template, you're tearing off the flock, leaving all the individual dots behind on the carrier that actually were cut out of the flock that you're going to then set on a table, brush in rhinestones, and then be able to mask it, transfer it, and heat apply it. Well, for a holographic material, you can actually do the same process, but instead of using that rhinestone flock side, now we're just using the dots because the design was already made for us when we created the actual rhinestone flocking. So I'll show you that at the very, very last thing I want to show you is that one. But one of the cool parts about EasyWeed, especially when we start talking about the fluorescent vinyls that are out there, is the special effects. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to make an awesome fast project, and Halloween's coming up, so this is a really good opportunity to use this. But let me go to an overhead really quick, walk you through the process one more time because I like to make sure that we're thorough about this. I'm going to preheat the bottom platen of my press. I'm going to go ahead and take my first layer of EasyWeed, and I'm going to make sure that it's warm enough. And I usually just make sure that it's warm to the touch, guys. We're not trying to burn ourselves here or go that far, but we just want to make sure that it's warm enough that it's actually going to loosen up that adhesive for us. So now I'm going to go ahead and peel off all of the excess or weed it all out. In this process, we've already actually gone over once. This is just layering multiple layers together. But what I want to show you is how to do it in a strategic way to make create almost like a fake neon sign on your design. So we have our first layer. This is what I call our illumination layer or a bulb layer, okay? Or our illumination or color layer. This is basically the layer on the garment that's going to have the color of our neon bulb, okay? So we'll put that there to start. Now, what's most important about any bulb is there's got to be a hot point, or there's got to be a filament, or there's got to be a portion of the bulb that actually creates the light itself. And that's what we're actually going to use EasyWeed white for. So we have a fluorescent on the actual material itself that we're going to be using for the color. And now we're going to use a simple white offset, or inset, should I say, to this design to actually create our neon effect. So let me go ahead, and I want to really show you the difference between these two. So we have a little bit thicker contour here, and then this one is super, super thin. But again, this will act as our physical bulb, quote unquote, to our actual neon sign itself. Let me just make sure that I can weed out the last couple of pieces here. Looks like we got some cavity in this E, and then at the bottom of the S. And then now what I can do is I can layer both of my designs together, and you guys will already be able to see it starting to take effect of your neon sign. So let me get that up into the camera a little bit more. So now you can start to see that there's already that effect happening, right? And really what two pieces of this is going on, right? Number one, we have our design itself that's helping us. Number two, we're putting it against a dark garment. So when we're talking about elevating our projects, a lot of times what ends up happening is we take a really, really intricate or really good design and we throw it up against a contrasting color that doesn't work. It doesn't work in that family. So what we need to make sure we do is, in the case of we're making a fake neon sign, use something dark that will help to act as that illumination. And once we get this pressed in, right now you're gonna see a little bit of how that happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to, like we talked about, pre-press my garment, or preheat my garment. And I'm gonna show you a little trick. So I have my design layered already, right? So I have the white on top of the bottom layer, which makes up my entire bulb or my entire neon effect, okay? Once I'm done preheating my garment, I'm actually not gonna separate these just yet. What I'm going to do on my garment itself, and let me do this so you guys can see it that way, I'm going to lay down the entire design. And the reason why I'm doing this is I'm trying to find the placement of where my design is gonna fit best on my garment itself. But I'm doing it all together for a really specific reason. What I can do now is, now that I've had my design all laid down, I can take everything but the bottom layer. So we're using a one layer design here, but if you had multiple layers, you're gonna just remove every layer besides the bottom layer. And the reason why I call this, or why we use this as the bottom layer, is it's called a foundation layer. This is going to set the foundation for the rest of the design. Now you may say to yourself, well, I'm doing a unicorn head, right? Well, in that case, the unicorn horn might act as your foundation, or the actual head of the unicorn itself might act as your foundation. Whatever you decide your foundation to your design is, it's really important to recognize that and understand that, so that when you get into the next step of actually putting it all together, everything kind of fits appropriately. So let's go back into the overhead here, and I'm going to heat apply this first layer. Okay, I'm just gonna give it a 1 to 2 second tack on the press itself, and then I can peel that carrier. Next thing I'm gonna do, because I've laid down my foundation, so everything will follow in line with that, which in this case will be my bulb layer. I'm gonna go ahead and put that one down, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and do a 1 second to 2 second tack on this layer. And the reason why I'm doing a 1 to 2 second tack is not only for the fact that we're trying to speed up, obviously, for a class, but in between each layer itself, your actual garment still has tendency to shrink. So anybody out there that does laundry, you know that you put a shirt in one time, it shrinks. Put it in again, you're like, oh my God, this thing shrunk again. And then you put it in even one more time and it still shrinks. Garments still will hold moisture. They'll still hold some shape. So it's important that not only the pre-press, but using the 1 second tack method doesn't just make our design work faster or apply faster. Most importantly, what it's stopping and preventing is from the actual garment to shrink, so that the registration or the layers of your design don't get all discombobulated and confused and rearranged. So that is a really, really important distinction, but we have a really cool like neon effect sign now that we could make, or that we could take this Halloween. And with the fluorescence, we already know that under the black light, it's gonna shine really, really well. I was actually at funny enough, because a lot of people see me with this exact hat on, I was at a birthday party and the fluorescence in the black light shine really and glow really, really well. So all the kids were asking me about it. So no big deal. I'm an adult that has cool stuff, and kids want me to make them all hats now, which is pretty awesome, and they can all match. Anyway, with that said, this is the neon effect. So this is a great way, not only have we gotten into the EasyWeed to show you the basics of the EasyWeed family, we've then gotten to EasyWeed Adhesive to show you the versatility of the adhesive of EasyWeed, but now we've gotten into making and creating an effect or a special effect, which is that neon sign effect, which is also being utilized with just EasyWeed. Guys, we haven't gone out of our foundation or our standard product that we carry, and we've already been able to accomplish 3 different methods of designing, which can be flip-flop rearranged in any direction or any way that you want to manipulate it. So with that, is there any questions on the actual neon effect itself?
Yeah, we have one question.
Love it. Yep.
How do you choose between the bottom layer color and top layer color? Are there any tools that Siser provides to help us understand contrast colors or neon effect colors?
So that is actually a really great statement. Number one, I don't know of any that we carry to date that really help you guide you through that process. So that's actually a really great tip that I'm going to bring back to our team. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Choosing your base layer or a foundation layer, as I say, is really about the way that I'm going to design something. So in the event, and I actually have 3 great examples of that. Now these 2 examples are done differently, but obviously the same method, where we started out with the blue layer, okay, on this EasyWeed 71. We started out with the blue layer and we built the contour from there. So what I typically say for a foundation, whatever the largest piece of your design is typically what you would use for that foundation layer. Now, if we're talking about color contrast and getting into color schemes, there's a lot of really, really great resources on there, but one of the biggest or the best resources for understanding what colors that we have, so when you do start to figure out and plan your designs and plan your palette out, you have the most information and knowledge on it is by visiting the SiserNA.com website. So it's SiserNA, SiserNA.com is a great place because we have the full color library, but we've actually one-upped it and we have a mobile app too. So you can actually go on, if you're an Android or an iPhone user, don't do it now, because remember we got classes to teach and learning, but right after this class, make sure that you go into either the Google Play Store or the iOS or the iOS store. Make sure that you download that SiserNA mobile app, so SiserNA mobile app, which is going to give you all color swatches in every single line of product that Siser carries. I will tell you, for me personally, I use a couple different website sources that are just, basically like I put in one color and it gives me all the palettes. I think one of them is called like palette or color palette. But that is the way that I kind of start figuring out my designs here. Our concept team and our graphic designers upstairs, they've got all of our colors locked and loaded. So they kind of rearrange in their own minds. But we have a lot of meetings about, like for this shirt, for example, yes, it's very simple to say, okay, you're Siser North America and you went with red, white, and blue. However, for something like this, I could have definitely gone with a different color garment, a different color material, and we have a lot different looking design itself. So I always say consult, number one, friends, consult designer friends, people that you're in your network that's easily accessible, but also too, for foundation layers and selecting what layer is going to be that bottom layer, I simply just take the biggest. And here's the reason why I take the biggest, and then I'll wrap up on that one. But I take the biggest layer for the reason that there is a carrier sheet that's typically on all materials, okay? The biggest layer naturally is going to have the largest surface area of carrier sheet. So even if this design was bigger and you had a little bit smaller design in there, I would still use this as my base layer, which we are next, because this is actually my larger design of the 2 that we're going to be utilizing in this next process itself. I hope that answered the question or got us partially the way there. Alrighty, so moving on from EasyWeed, which is a standard line and a thinner material, let's start talking about dimensional materials and special effects materials. So we have a line, 3 lines here at Siser, which is glitter, sparkle, and twinkle. All of them seemingly do the same thing, but all of them are different. So the reason that I say that, a glitter material is usually rough as a feel. A twinkle material is usually a rubberized coating, okay? Sparkle is kind of a hybrid in between both. And what I really, really like about sparkle is the fact that not only does it have a glittering glistening effect to it because it does actually have glitter flakes embedded in the material. As you can see, I'm getting horrible reflection from the lights, but you can kind of see some of that glitter. But also it comes in a variety of colors, which just help to kind of elevate your projects, but they're subtle enough to where if you don't want to necessarily stand out, but you also want to be a talking piece of the event or whatever you're doing, you can still be that. So let's show you kind of how this works. Now, with the sparkle at line itself, this is actually a material that was designed with the intent or the thought of the cheerleader or the gymnast in mind. Because it is like a brick, or not a brick, I'm sorry, it's like a glitter, it acts as a glitter, however, it's a smooth surface. So there's no abrasion to it. So a lot of times for any of our athletes, you know, if they are going out and they're doing practice or their warm-ups or whatever it may be, we don't need, you know, flyers getting thrown up in the air with glitter on them and then they're scratching all the bases as they come down, right? So with that said, what I'm going to go ahead and do for this one is something a little bit different, even contrary to what I just showed you. With this, I'm actually going to use my thicker or my larger layer as my top layer. And there's a reason for this design. And this is what I mean by designing with intention when we talk about this process. So this design itself, although a very simple design, very effective, we're utilizing the pink sparkle layer, and we're actually using a clear sparkle, which is acting as a pitcher and is kind of accenting our design. So let me throw it on a darker garment so you can really see. But for this one, I did the same exact thing where I have both layers together, but my foundation layer for this one is actually going to be my pink layer as opposed to my clear layer here. So let's go ahead and place my design. Make sure that press is there for you. Place my design where I want it to be. Again, I'm peeling the top layer, leaving the bottom layer. One of the cool parts about the sparkle is although it's not necessarily a 1 second tack, you actually don't have to apply this material for more than a couple seconds. And this material will actually peel for you really, really well. It is a hot peel product. So when we talk about that, a lot of times we talk about the difference in a cold peel, a warm peel, and a hot peel. A cold peel means that has to sit off the press for 10 to 15 seconds. Give that material time to be cold to the touch before we actually remove that carrier, which is typically what you'll see in like a metal or even holographic at times can be that way as well. For something like a sparkle, it's a warm to hot peel type product. So yes, you can peel it almost right away. However, giving it a second or so off of the direct heat will allow it to just peel a little bit better. And then you have an EasyWeed product or anything in the EasyWeed line, which is just a hot peel product. You can rip that carrier off all day and you don't have to necessarily worry about affecting your design and or your garment or your project overall. So let's go ahead, hop in really quick to laying down that top layer, and there's a reason why I'm actually doing this in reverse, because I want to show you, I think this is a great example of showing what fake layering looks like in a design itself. So I'm going to go ahead and let that finish applying. I could take that carrier sheet off and then do one final press to really seal everything in, but because I don't have a cover sheet on the table with me, I'm just going to utilize the actual transfer sheet or transfer piece of it as the cover sheet. So go ahead and I'll peel that off. And then I want to show you on the overhead the reason why I used why I talked about the fake layering earlier. And let me really get this close and really make sure you guys see that detail in there. There we go. So with the material itself, you can see that I have my clear layer, which now just takes on the color of whatever my garment is. So for this type of material, what's really cool about it is because this is clear, if you have a blue shirt, this is gonna be a blue picture. If you have a black shirt, a black picture, so on and so forth. You guys get the point of it. However, you can see that the actual bottom of the picture itself, we utilize that pink sparkle, which offered, let me just get that real close there we go, which offered what I call that fake knockout. So you can see a very thin contour of the clear all the way around, but we've knocked that portion out so that we can put that pink layer in there as well. So this just allows you a really easy, convenient way to do a multicolored design, but also have a little bit of style with it, because we get it, right? EasyWeed is a great product and I love EasyWeed. It's one of my favorite products that we have, but it's a solid color. And for some of you guys, you need a little bit more sparkle. And we totally understand. So hence why we have the sparkle material that will allow you to kind of elevate your design or your business or your garment or whatever your next project may be, you know, with a little bit of pizzazz and flash, as I like to say. Do we have any questions on that one in particular itself?
Yeah, hold on one second. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so why did you press on the shirt before the holographic layer?
I'm sorry, for the sparkle? Is that what we're talking about?
I think so. I'm waiting for them to confirm, though.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. If you're talking about, so I'll just say, I can answer it two different ways. If you're talking about why did I like pre-press, is because I always pre-press a garment for me personally. But the press that you probably saw in between the two layers was probably me removing the carrier and tapping it down. If it was about the holographic material itself, which is our EasyWeed adhesive and foil, if we're going back to that one, the reason why you see me press in between is I lay down the foil on top, and then we have to put a cover sheet over that so that that foil doesn't break up and damage the bottom of our press or the heating element of our press. Hopefully I gave you enough time to get the answer or the question.
She hasn't said anything else. If she does, I have a couple more questions. We'll
Perfect,
come back
yeah.
to it.
For sure. That works perfectly. Yeah, go ahead.
So I do some resin art, for example, coasters.
Love
so
it.
I use HTV to add labels to it, but when pressed, it transfers a lot of glue to the coaster.
Yes.
What do you suggest to avoid this?
So I'm gonna answer this two ways, and then I'm curious to know what your response is. When you are pressing, are you trying to then seal in the material onto whatever you're doing? So like for me, when I make tumblers or I make cups, a lot of times I throw my base layer of resin down. I typically don't use heat transfer materials when it comes to any resin stuff because it does have tendency to either slowly start to melt that resin or resin down a little bit, even if it is cured, or it has tendency to warp it, as you probably know already. But with that, I like using adhesive just because we can still find all the same styles, dimension, and workability of like a regular heat transfer, but with the adhesive, just makes it a little bit easier to apply and then seal that resin in clean after the fact. So I'm going to assume that you're probably not sealing in after, and that's okay if not, and if you are, I'm sorry. But I always recommend to people, because we do get that question a lot where there's people that do tumblers and do resin projects. I always recommend sealing it in after the fact and maybe going more to like an adhesive vinyl, which we have a huge line of our Starling PSV, which is also available at Michael's. That's a dishwasher safe material. We also have our EasyPSV glitter. We have a few different lines of adhesive options for you for things like tumblers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, we have two more questions.
Go for it, yeah.
Could you get the sparkle look with any of the EasyWeed colors by just layering the clear sparkle?
Hey, see, you're one step ahead of me, and I'm almost curious to know if this is somebody here at Siser that's asking. Yes, you can. So the cool part is about sparkle is being that it has a clear material. Now, I will say this. I want to just make sure. Yes, you can do it. And yes, you can use any EasyWeed or color that you want. Utilize the sparkle as a top layer because EasyWeed itself is a layerable product, and so is sparkle. So you can layer them up. But you will still have a little bit of a glossy finish. Just keep in mind because it is a clear material that's over top. So you will have a little glossy finish when all said and done. However, it looks awesome. It does really, really look cool. So that is a great question. And yes, you absolutely can. What was I thought you said you had one more, right?
Yeah, one more. And also, the person who asked just the last question says she's not from Siser, just one of your fans.
Hey, I appreciate it. Well, hello and thank you. I always get curious because when I do my lives, a lot of times, or I do any content, I always have everybody upstairs, usually, that is like commenting and trying to throw me off. So that's why I'm asking. But thank you for watching.
Okay, so the last question is, what is the lightest HTV to use for larger designs, or is DTV better?
So Michael's just got, and I will say this, full color spectrum design. So if you're doing a full color design, Easy Color DTV is your option. That's the way to go, especially if you have a home desktop printer and you don't have a big, manufacturing printer that's available to you. That's the thinnest material, and that's going to be your best option. If we're talking about heat transfer vinyls, there's actually a really great new product that's exclusive to Michaels right now, so you can pick it up at Michaels, called Eco Stretch. Eco Stretch is our thinnest material that we've ever made. It's a vegan material. It is CPSIA compliant, just like all of our others, but we are starting to go green. I think a lot of people are starting to go green right now, thinking about the environment, thinking about what we're doing to our climate. Now, Siser has manufactured products for many, many years under that CPSIA compliance shield and umbrella, which basically means that all of our products are child safe, and then some of our products are even vegan friendly. Well, Eco Stretch is no exception to that. That is our brand new stretchable product that's going to be our thinnest. It's the closest thing for anybody here. It is the closest thing to screen print that you're going to get in a heat transfer vinyl. I can tell you hands down, I don't know of any other heat transfer vinyl that feels, operates, and looks and acts like an Eco Stretch. So if you are looking for a thinner material, especially for large showcase style designs, make sure you head over to Michaels or go to michaels.com and find Eco Stretch, ECO/stretch, in the Siser lineup. That is the best one to use for sure. Yeah. So what I want to do, if there's no other questions on that, I want to really quickly hop into software, kind of show you how some of these designs are made. And then what we can do is we can wrap up from there, and I'll show you some 2 other materials that we can show you to elevate. I know it's an hour class, so I'm trying to be as punctual as possible, but bear with me because I promise there's a lot of really, really great info coming up here. So with that, I want to hop into software. Now, inside Leonardo Design Studio, you have a ton of options when it comes to tutorials to teach you how to use the software, teach you how to use the materials, inspiration. So if you are somebody that gets inspired easily, but maybe you don't have a lot of design ability, which is for some of our creators, that's how it is. We have a great option for an inspiration page where you can select an image, you can see how it was made, tells you how to actually create it, what tools are needed, and then it also allows you to grab the design right away or favor a design so you can come back to it later. Have a design library that has an extensive library of not only simple clip art, but also intricate clip art, as well as intricate designs, multicolor, multi-layer designs, and everything is categorized by season, by theme, by category type, everything. Material library, to our friend that asked earlier about some Siser materials, we actually have every material listed in the Siser lineup on the actual software itself. So we'll go to an EasyWeed. The cool part is that if I say I find an EasyWeed fluorescent green, I click on the color itself, shows me the actual thumbnail of it, shows me what it's called, how it works, whether it's laser friendly, layerable, iron-on, or CPSIA compliant, what materials they apply to, and application instructions. So what I want to do is hop over into the design page of Leonardo Design Studio. And what you're always presented with is that 12 by 12 cutting mat that is just for all of our folks that are used to cutting from the mat or cutting scrap material. But we also have an awesome option for a material roll. And what this material roll allows me to essentially do in software is say that I'm going to Michaels and I'm picking up a 12-inch by 1 yard piece of material. I can now design directly to that 12-inch by 1 yard piece of material. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to import a design that we're going to utilize. Let me go up to the top, sorry. Into design itself. Quick access, here we go. And I want to do the sample. So this is a sample that we use for shows. This is actually an SVG that I'm bringing in. There's a couple options in Leonardo. You can bring in images in a PNG or a PDF as a print and cut, or a JPEG file. You can bring in any SVGs as a editable artwork or a cut only piece of art. So once I hit apply, that's just going to bring all of my anchors onto my main design board. Now you're probably asking yourself, Patrick, that's not going to cut because it's not all the way on our material. Well, let me show you a really cool way of how to make this happen. So I'm ungrouping everything so I can delete a big batch of these, and I only want to start with one because I don't want to cheat you guys out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my one design. It doesn't matter where it falls on the actual material or the mock-up, quote unquote, of material that I'm using. I'm going to come down to my tools. into the scaling tools, and what I'll find is a tile array. Now this tile array tool, once I open it up, I have the ability to add copies, multiple copies in every direction. Or if I have one piece of material and I just want to be able to cut as many copies as I can hit auto fit, hit apply, and now I've just put multiple designs on one piece of material within seconds. So it's a really cool option that you have within Leonardo Design Studio, but what I want to do is I just want to cut out a couple of these because I want to press on to this shirt that I got so I can show you kind of how that holographic will allow you to elevate your business. Now, I'm going to bring this back to a 12 by 12 artboard for me just because it's easier to work with, and I'm going to hit this 100% sign so it'll bring it up to 100%. And then I'm simply going to select my image once I'm comfortable with it. I want to do this probably at about 4.5 inches. And then I'm going to hit the hotkey O. And what the O does is you'll see it just brings it into Leonardo Design Studio and the Romeo and Juliet high definition cutters into our origin point, which is for all my friends there that are using Cricut, Brother Scan and Cut, Cameo. You guys are used to a different origin, which is typically top left. Ours is on the bottom left, and I'll explain kind of why that is as this is starting to cut. Because my material that I'm cutting is a little bit longer, I'm actually going to make a copy of this and just slide it on over. And then now I'm going to highlight both of those images, go up to my send design, which is behind my little screen here. And then I'm going to just simply send these designs. They're a simple one color. We won't get too deep into Leonardo because that's actually another class, so look out for that in the near future. I'm mirroring my image within Leonardo Design Studio, and I'm adding an auto weed box. Now, an auto weed box is really cool because it basically cuts a box out around your design. It's just a way to save space. Or what I have the option to do is select one design, hit X, and it will actually give me an auto weed box around both of my designs. So let's say that I'm creating these for mass production and I just want to be able to save some and store them away. Well, now I have a bunch that are unweeded that I can just pull off the shelf really quick, weed, and make it really, really easy. Now, within Leonardo Design Studio, one of the really cool parts about it is there is an area test. So once I'm connected, so let me just make sure that I'm connected to the internet here, Cutter, good. And once I'm actually connected here to the internet, I can go ahead and just connect wirelessly to my cutter itself. So let's go ahead and hit that test cut. My machine itself is actually running the course of a test cut. So let me do this. Let me actually go overhead. I'm going to make this a little wider for you guys. And I'm going to make sure that that's in frame. Okay, cool. So what you can see right now, and I'm sorry, the camera will stop rocking here in 1 second. What you can see right now, here is my material. Okay, loaded up on my machine. Now, to load material on the Juliet or the Romeo high definition cutters, there's two options. There's a main lever in the back right here that moves up and down. This lever will move the pinch wheels up or open them up for you so that you can just place your material into the cutter itself. If you have material that's cut in a straight edge, so I use like a Frisca cutter, like a photo cutter, and it has a straight edge, I can just take my material and set it up against my pinch wheels, hit the up button, and load my material in to the machine that way. So then now I know my material is going to be loaded in as straight as it can. Now I know the bottom of this one isn't the straightest curve, but you can understand my point. Now inside the Juliet high definition cutter, one of the cool parts is there's cut settings. So I can hit on the actual LCD screen itself, hit the cut settings button, click on the material, which will open up the main library. And now there's 3 different pages for this library. I know you guys can't see it super well, but I'm going to select the holographic option. Now what I'm going to do from here is I'm on the holographic main menu. There's a small little test cut button. And like Stephanie always says here at Siser, if you watch So Stephanie Says or you follow her on anything, test cut, test cut, test cut. That is super, super important. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is click that button. And then actually, you know what, let me just go to overhead the whole time. And then what it's going to do is basically cut me out a test cut of my design itself. Now, from there, I'm just going to grab my weeder, advance my material slightly, and see if I can see that little cut that we just made to make sure that my force settings are correct on my Juliet. Now, for me, I see, oh, there we go. Let's see. All right, so for that one, it doesn't look like they were good, but that's the benefit of the Juliet is that I can actually bring my blade to the side and I can adjust my cut force and my cut speed all from this menu. So let me up that speed a little bit. Or I'm sorry, up the force a little bit, so I'm cutting a little deeper into the material. Run a test cut again, and let's see what kind of results we get. So from here, I can just weed out my holographic layer. And just like that, it's weeding out enough for me. Now for me, I don't like when I feel any stickiness or sticking of my material. So now what I'm gonna do is make just a quick adjustment and go up a couple more, force settings and hit my test cut again. Now what this is doing is just doing a series of multiple test cuts, and I'm really able to kind of hone in my settings with the Juliet. So that one is a little bit cleaner for me. I like that a lot better than the first one. And what you're really looking for is not so much, this weeder is all over the place. Not so much of like, is the design separating, the ease of weeding when it comes to utilizing these. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring my blade back to the bottom left origin. Now, as you notice, I did advance some of my material out. That's only because it's just a scrap piece of material for me. However, wherever the blade is, or the blade starts on the Juliet, this is known as the cut origin. So on the Juliet itself, the cut origin is the bottom left of your material. The reason being that it's the bottom left is so when your material is cutting, it will advance to the front of the machine, as opposed to a lot of us that are using the common craft cutters out there, or industrial cutters that actually cut towards the back of the machine. A lot of times what ends up happening is you don't know your design's messed up until it's done. So you've now wasted an entire piece of material as opposed to a couple small inches of material along the way. So let's go back into software really quick. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go into software really fast for you because I wanna show you just sending this. So what I'm gonna do to send this design is I'm gonna go ahead and highlight both of them. Obviously my mirror option is already open. I'm not going to hit the auto weed box because we've already created 2 custom ones. And then if we go to the overhead, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna hit this area test. And on the overhead, you're going to be able to see that the area test, the blade will run the outside perimeter of the design itself without actually cutting anything, so I can ensure that it's not going to fall off of the material at all when we're actually cutting our design out. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead to the next step, and I'm just gonna hit send to cutter. And this will start my Juliet to cut my design out, and as you can see, it'll run as it's in fast pace. So with the Juliet itself, it does run extremely quickly. The motor itself runs at about 24 to 27 inches per second. But with that said, our cut settings are not maxed out. And the reason why we didn't do that right from the start when we manufactured the Juliet or the Romeo was just for blade longevity and also motor longevity. The longevity and life span of the actual Juliet itself, we didn't want to jeopardize that. So you always start about 3 steps below the fastest. So it gives you kind of an indicator as this thing's running. It's also a quiet machine. We can have a conversation at the same time that this machine's running, even with a mic, even with me mic'd up, and obviously that's picking up a lot of the room audio and a lot of my audio. It still is a very, very quiet machine to work with. So as this is cutting away, I'm gonna go to questions really fast, but I wanna get into the brick embossed, which is the second to last thing that I'm gonna show you. And then finally, we're gonna press the holographic so I can explain a little bit of that process to you and that material. So do we have any quick questions?
No, you are good to continue.
Awesome, awesome. Alrighty, so with brick is a really cool product, and I love this product as well as EasyWeed Stretch or Eco Stretch works extremely well for this process. So with the brick, unlike EasyWeed, it is a thicker material, okay? So the actual material itself, EasyWeed, as I told you before, is 80 to 90 microns thick. Brick 600, hence in the name, it's actually 600 microns thick. So this is a great product to use when we're utilizing like a hat and we're making a hat. Obviously, as you see, I wear hats all the time. So I use a lot of brick in my designs and what I make every day. With that said, Brick 600 is not like EasyWeed in that I told you before, it's a hot peel product. Brick is actually going to be a cold peel product. We gotta wait till that product cools off a little bit before we go ahead and peel that carrier off of there. So let me go back to the overhead. While you see this thing cutting still away, Juliet is doing her thing. I'm gonna go ahead and press onto one of these mini tees. I'm gonna press this brick so that we can really get an idea of what it looks like. Now, I told you guys, we're going to pre-press. Let's make sure that we always do that. It's efficient. It helps us to reduce moisture. I'm going to say that so many times during these classes that you'll never forget it, I promise you. But once our garment's actually pre-pressed, I'm taking my brick design itself, and I'm just going to lay it down on the garment wherever I see that's best, and then I'm going to heat apply. Now with brick, much like EasyWeed or our other lines, 305 to 310 degrees for that 10 to 15 seconds is really what brick needs to really cure on its own. Now, for the next process that we're doing, we actually don't need it to cure 100% of the way, but we'll show you this really fast so we can show you a cool comparison. And much like I told you with the adhesive, make sure that you're cooling off your brick, rubbing it on a cold surface, a table, you know, making sure that it's cold to the touch before you do it. Everybody upstairs tells me to rub it on my heart. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming they're saying I'm cold-hearted. So with that, once our material is cool to the touch and we're good, I can go ahead and lay it down. And what I always do is I slowly peel back one of the corners just to make sure, because with a thicker material, it can have tendency to need an additional press. But if you're peeling up your first corner fine, there you go. There's your brick 600. Now, with that, I wish there was a way. Let me see if I can get the camera really, really dialed in up here to see if I can show you the thickness. So let's get it focused in close up. And thank you guys for bearing with me on some of the camera motion. So you can really see, let's get that even more so. There we go. You can really see the thickness of that brick product itself. I mean, it really stands off of the garment, and it's something that you can literally like scratch because of how thick it is. So really cool, really cool thing to have in your you know, arsenal of designs and things that you're making. However, keep in mind that if we are going for a lighter product, brick might not be it for you. However, I'm going to show you something really cool with the brick that you're able to utilize with another material we carry, which is EasyWeed Stretch, or the Eco Stretch works. And in the event that you really want to elevate it, our Easy Color DTV is stretchable enough to do this process as well. So I'm going to go back to overhead. I have two parts of this design. I have my contour, or my actual design itself, and then I have a solid color of EasyWeed. In this case, it's black, EasyWeed Stretch, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, for this one, use a pink garment, because I feel like I have not used the pink or fuchsia or what this color, magenta. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and press this down, pre-press my garment as I told you guys already, and we'll speed this process up just a little bit because I think that my holographic may be getting close to done here. I'm going to pre-press this garment for about 9 seconds, and this is a great way to show you what I was talking about in that moisture. So you can see the bottom half of the garment is darker than the top half. That's because we're drawing all that moisture out of that garment. This top half is still holding a bunch of it. So it's still it has a lot of body to it. This is very flat because we're ironing it down. We're getting some of that additional stuff out of there. So with that, let me go ahead and put down my brick layer first. And for this process on the brick layer itself, we're actually going to press for about 6 to 8 seconds. And the reason why I do 6 to 8 seconds on this process is I don't want to cure the adhesive all the way for the brick, because we still have another portion of the process that's going to help us to seal it in and really cure that product in there. So with that, again, I'm just cooling it off. Sorry if you have any random wind noises coming from the microphone, guys. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick peel. Again, checking the corners first just to ensure that we're not going to peel off. Once I'm done there, the next step is going to be laying down my EasyWeed, or my EasyWeed stretch layer, my Eco Stretch layer. And the thing that I like to do, this layer is actually a contour offset of this layer. So this will actually, let's get a weeder really quick so I can kind of draw it out for you guys too. This will actually be a slightly bigger than this design itself. And the only reason why is we want it to adhere to the garment here, but also part of the embossed or the fake embossed is going to be the adherence to the inside of this garment and all these little cavities, which really tie it together. So line up the best way that you find works. I always find that I just take 2 corners of the design, make sure those are lined up first, and then I run my fingers around the design to make sure that I have enough clearance on both sides, or on all sides, should I say. And then there we go. I can lay that down. I'm gonna go back into my heat press, and there's 2 ways that I have to accomplish this, okay? The first one is gonna be that 1 to 2 second tack. That lays down that EasyWeed layer for me, okay? And I'm gonna go to an overhead on this process just so you guys can see. Right now, that looks like a solid black contour, right? It doesn't really look like much of anything in there. Here's what we need to do. We need to get the material to adhere to the garment and not the brick layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using the bottom cushion. You know, these heat presses, they have these little cushions on the bottom platen. We're going to be using that small cushion as a, basically as like an extra weight to help push that EasyWeed stretch up to the actual garment itself, which will then encapsulate all those little cavities and give us a really cool embossed look. Now, best to turn your press up a little bit as far as the actual pressure setting. This is just going to ensure that we get enough of the actual, I call it the smushing. Upstairs, they don't like me to say that too much, but smushing the brick layer down and using that bottom rubberized coating. Now, sometimes you have to do it more than once. So right now, we're kind of getting a little bit closer. But let me actually just crank up the pressure here. Get a really good press with this brick layer, and then we should have an awesome fake embossed result. So not only have we showed you how to do a simple 2-layer with EasyWeed, we showed you how to use the craft foil and adhesive. We showed you how to use a product that'll allow you to add a little bit of flair in the sparkle, but now we're showing you the brick embossed method, which that turned out great. Let me see if I can get a good visual on this one for you too. Let's go up. There we go. So now you can see on there, let's see if we can get a good, there we go. There's a good angle of it. So now you can start to see that embossing take place, or that fake embossing take place. So really quick, convenient, easy way to have an awesome design on your garment itself. Any questions on the embossing? I know that the embossing part's a lot of information. However, guys, if you want to know anything more, you want to learn more about it, michaels.com is a great resource, but also please follow us on Siser North America on all platforms. So that's Siser North America on YouTube. That's where I do all the tutorials. Joe had some tutorials that he had done. We always are trying to educate and create, as well as make sure you follow us on all platforms. That's Instagram, Facebook. We also have a support group in our Facebook. On our Facebook, we have a Facebook support group called the Siser North America support page. That's also where like-minded creatives like yourself can also share information as well. So I just want to make sure that as we're waiting for questions to come in, that you guys have multiple places to follow us and share our content.
We only have one question.
Cool.
How does brick differ from, say, the puff?
Yes, so where puff, much like on my shirt itself, so great call because I have puff on my shirt. Puff actually uses a heating element, or uses the heating element to, like, the material starts flat, and then it obviously, it starts the dimension, it puffs the dimension under high heat. Brick 600 feels more like a rubberized coating to it. So it's a lot more, without disclosing who we make products for, a lot of your athletic companies utilize something like a brick where it's more of a rubberized coating to it on the top, as opposed to a puff where it's more of a thin material that then is just what the heat, once the heat hits it, it expands, the actual physical material expands. I kind of attribute puff like caulking foam, where you'll put like insulation foam in once and then you watch it kind of rise. That's essentially how puff works, whereas brick is more or less like slapping a piece of tape to a wall that has a thick something on top of it. Is really the best way that I can explain the difference between the two, for sure. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is oh, I'm sorry, were there any other questions? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody.
One more just came in.
Yeah.
How does a home laundry iron compare to the heat press?
There is good and bad in both, okay? So a home laundry iron and or an easy press and or handheld heat presses, the big difference between a press and handheld is exactly that. You are the difference maker. So with a heat press, whether myself, whether anybody in this class right now puts that heat press on medium to firm pressure or medium pressure, standard pressure, everybody's going to get the same result as far as pressure, meaning that once that dial is set, it's set. When it comes to a hand press, what really part of the process, there's three big elements when it comes to pressing on a heat transfer vinyl. It's time, it's temperature, and most importantly, it's pressure. So when we're using a handheld press, a lot of people misjudge how much weight you should be putting into or how much you should be putting into a vinyl. Now there's a lot of places out there that'll tell you, oh, you don't need a heat press for this process. You don't need, a home iron will work. A home iron works great. That's how I started. That's how most people start. However, being able to upgrade yourself to a press at some time just gives you more consistency on that third and most vital element of those three, which is your pressure itself. It just allows you to make sure that it's honed in. Yeah. And I will say this to the whole group, I apologize. I actually weeded this design out and I totally realized I weeded it out. So I'm gonna weed out the other one just so we can get into this final press here. And I just wanna say too, as we're getting into the final press and towards the end of this class, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Thank you guys so much for attending these classes. I think this is an awesome educational opportunity that Michaels provides, and by you guys joining these and getting involved with them, it just allows us to do more and more of these classes to bring the education to you. So make sure after the class, okay, I'm not going to say it now because I'm not ready to leave yet, but after the class, head back over to michaels.com, go through all of those classes. I mean, there's card makers in there. There was a bunch that we already mentioned at the top of this, but go and look and check these projects out, because learning from like-minded creatives or learning from educators in the industry is a great way to learn all about these products. So with that said, I'm going to hop back into overhead one last time for you. So this was the point of the weeding box. You saw that I had one piece weeded already. Here is essentially my weeding box. Now, like I told you guys before, if you're a rhinestone maker, this is going to be really familiar to you. We actually cut out a rhinestone template already, and I love the peel of rhinestone or holographic into faux rhinestones because it's always a cool peel. But this layer, okay, let me flip it over so you can see all the dots. This layer is typically what you would use for rhinestone flock. You would use this. Then you would brush in all of your rhinestones, right? And then you would put a transfer tape over it and you'd apply it. Well, here at Siser, we wanted to find a more convenient way to do this exact process, but not have to worry about cutting the flock and then wasting the good part of your material. So by utilizing a holographic material, okay, and utilizing the right color garment, we can actually create a faux rhinestone or a fake rhinestone effect. Now, the big benefit in doing this rhinestone effect this way is the fact that you can actually, you can see that it looks like rhinestones, and once I apply it to this garment here in a second, you're gonna really see it pop. But also, this is typically your waste in rhinestone flocking. This is typically what people are tossing to the side. We're just taking holographic and creating the rhinestones for you. Now, with holographic, it comes in a ton of different colors, and it comes in a ton of different options. So you have a lot of opportunity when you want to create faux rhinestones. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Make Market shirt right here, and this one itself is 100% cotton, and I'm just going to line it up on my heat press. And now this is the first time you guys are seeing a full-size shirt, so I really want to make sure that I'm pushing stuff out of the way so you guys can really see this whole process. So I have my garment on. Now, if you guys want to find an easy way to make a center point in your garment, take your shirt itself, okay, and fold the collar directly in half, and then lay your garment down and just fold it in half and ensure that all of the edges or the edges are lined up together. Take the front of your garment, or what typically would be, so this portion right here, just so you guys know, this is my collar, obviously. that's folded in half. So this is going to be the front of my garment. And I'm going to give this a quick pre-press. And why I say pre-press is this is actually going to do two different things for you. Not only is this going to preheat your garment, so it's going to help to shrink it, get all that moisture out, everything we talked about, but it's also going to iron a center line or a center point into your garment so that when you get into the actual application process, it's a lot easier to line up your garment. Now, say you have a left chest, okay? One of the best rules of thumb with a left chest, iron it in the center, and then take your garment. Let me see if I can get an overhead of this because I think this is really important info. Take your garment and you have the bottom of your armpit here in your actual shirt itself. Fold that on over and then make sure that it's even. And then this is your quadrant right here for your left chest, okay? This is going to be a full logo, right? Because we have now our center line drawn in here. But if we were to go at the armpit level, this is essentially your block or your square where your left chest can be applied to make it most effective. So just a quick tip, because I'm all about, especially in our content, I'm all about the quick tips and showing you guys little things along the way. So with that, I'm going to line my garment up. Now it's really important when I line my garment up to ensure that the actual collar itself, let me see if I can do it backwards, just so I can show you this part, because this is an important distinction too. Making sure that the actual collar of my garment, the heat press ends right here, making sure that it falls over the edge of my heat press. The reason why I want that seam in my collar up front, and I know you guys can't see it really, really well, but the reason I want that seam in my collar up front and I want it off of the heat press, now I'm not going to get any uneven pressure when I actually try to apply my design. And I already have a center point in my design, so we're good. The benefit in this design itself, which is a really simplistic design, is that it does have a full circle, so I can almost line it up exactly directly in the middle. I'm going to pinch the top, the bottom, and I always give a little pinch somewhere in the middle, because what this will now do is draw me a line essentially in my transfer. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to line that center line up with the center line that's actually on my shirt itself. And I usually, rule of thumb is from the bottom seam of the collar itself, going about 2 to 3 fingers, depending. If you got meaty hands like I do, 2 fingers is probably best, but 3 fingers on average from the collar will actually get you really, really good position. So even this one right here, this is about 3 fingers from the collar. I dropped it down just a little bit more, but you can see that it'll give you really good position on your garment into the chest. Now, I will say this, for ladies that are out there, some of us are bustier, some of us are not. So keep in mind that if you happen to be working with a client or yourself that happens to be a little bit bustier, instead of 3 fingers, maybe 4 fingers is best. And the only reason why is it drops that logo down in a more centralized location, because we obviously don't want our design sitting below or up on top of our chest. We don't want it sitting right below, right? We want to try to center it as much as possible. So it's a rule of thumb. It's a weird, uncomfortable conversation, I understand, but I always like to make sure, because I believe in education, I believe in teaching the right way. So with that, now that I have my design ready to press and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and just press that down. Actually, I need a little bit more pressure for it. I'm going to press that down. Now, when I press this design down for a holographic, I am not removing the carrier hot. I'm going to remove the carrier cold. Holographic is a material that needs a cold peel, but the end result of this one is so, so cool. So with that said, let me go ahead and move the press out of the way, lay my garment down, go back to the overhead so you guys can see. I love this. We're working with new technology, guys, so I love the overhead because you guys can finally see me and what I'm doing. So with that, I'm just going to cool it off. And remember, if you have a dirty table, unfortunately I didn't check before this, but if you have a dirty table, sometimes you can get dust and stuff all over. But we're good, we're cool to the touch. Now all I'm going to do is a test peel. I'm peeling fine. I'm just going to peel that clean. And just like that, we created a fake rhinestone effect. And let me get really, really close up on that because I've gotten that a couple of times for you guys, so I want to make sure that that's in there. There you go. Now you can really see that rhinestone effect in the garment itself or in the design itself. And then, obviously, when you're sitting there wearing it, everybody can see you shine bright like a diamond, if you will, or a rhinestone, one of the two. Any questions on this process at all, or any questions on any of this process that we talked about today?
I think we only have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is, does this mean, oh, sorry, comments
Yeah,
are
you're good.
coming in, so like
Hey, that's okay.
trying to, let's see. Oh, does this mean I could technically cut any rhinestone template onto some Caesar holographic?
Yes, that is the thing. See, guys, a lot of times when we don't talk about that enough. So to that question, I'm actually going to do it. We're going to make a video on it because I think it makes sense. But yes, you can. And you also have, now I will say this, okay, just to preface. When we get into colored holographics and stuff, there's certain things to look out for. Some of our holographics have little tiny like confetti flakes in them, and then some of them have more of crystal. The confetti flakes are what looks the best or works the best, but the crystal works perfectly fine too. So yes, you can take any rhinestone template, you can cut it out of holographic, and instead of using the rhinestone flock, or if you want to use the rhinestone flock as well, I mean, you can cut that same design out of rhinestone flocking and then do a rhinestone project. But this is a great way, and here's the best part, is that this is completely flat on the garment. So perfect example that I give when my daughters did gymnastics, all the girls, obviously leotards, they all have leotards, they all have rhinestones, the things fall off all the time. It's a great solution right here, right? We can create something and we can maybe go to the local gymnastics gym, see if we can pick up some clients if it's something where we're starting a business, and we can actually start creating things in that rhinestone template, but it's soft to the touch. It's very, very easy to pull too because there's not a lot of cavities, so you can pull the rhinestones and they're not falling off of this thing. That is the biggest benefit to using the holographic and doing the faux rhinestones for sure.
All right, and the last question is, can I do that on spandex material?
Ooh, great question. So yes, holographic does work on spandex as well. Again, I will say with certain heat sensitive garments, just be sure to do a test press. You know, everybody out there has a standard that they want to give you guys. I'm a crafter through and through, just like most of you guys are, and I'm also a business owner. So for me, I test everything. Take a small piece of that, put it under high heat under the press, see what that yield is or that threshold is before you start seeing things like discoloration, warping, shrinkage, burning, scorching, any of that stuff. And understand that part. At 305 degrees for 10 to 15 seconds, I don't think you'd have a problem with it. But again, I tell everybody just to be safe, test your materials, just to be safe. Any other questions?
That is it for the questions.
Hey, that is awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much again for allowing me to come and teach you something. Thank you for signing up. Make sure you tell all your friends when the YouTube video is available. Make sure you share it out there because I love when people get a chance to see us educate and teach, and we just want to broaden that horizon. So if you're looking for any of these materials that we talked about today, or the garment that we talked about, so we pressed on a make market, these are available at michaels.com. These are also available in your local Michaels store. Most of these materials on the table are also available at Michaels, so you can find them there. You can use them. The heat press is available at Michaels. The Juliet's available at Michaels. Really, the only thing in this setup is I'm not available at Michaels, so I apologize. But make sure you go to michaels.com. Make sure that you're following along with all of Michaels' classes and all of the things that Michaels is pushing out right now, because it's a lot of really great content for you guys. Also, if you can do me a huge favor, make sure that you come and subscribe to YouTube, Siser North America. We have a lot of technical content coming out on the Juliet and Romeo. So if you already have one, awesome. Thank you for having one. If you don't already have one, make sure you go pick yourself up one and you can learn from us there. But also follow us along at Siser North America everywhere. And like I always say, stay creative, stay crafty, and thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.